Good morning, everyone, and welcome to County Executive Pittman's press conference. This morning, the County Executive will be joined by Health Officer Dr. Nilesh Kalyana to discuss National Recovery Month. We'll take questions after the remarks. As a reminder, please put your name and media affiliation in the chat, and I'll call on folks for questions in that order. Also, please keep your microphone and camera off unless you're called on to ask a question. With that, Mr. County Executive.
All right, thank you, Jeff. We had been doing these weekly press availabilities for quite a long time, and noticed that we hadn't done one for the last few weeks simply because there was so much going on. There was always an event that it seemed like I was at and the press was at, and there's been more than enough news. But we wanted to get started again doing these, and particularly I just wanted to mention a few things before we open it up for questions. One is that this is National Recovery Month, and I have been at a number of events recently. Recovery in Arundel is a network of our providers, and they did a recovery walk on Sunday, and I was at an event that they had last week. We did our suicide prevention awareness walk as well on Saturday, which was over 1,200 walkers. Mental health and behavioral health have been at the forefront of everybody's minds. I was at our county's behavioral health providers conference this morning, and they're going to be in meetings all day long today. Having had a very difficult 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, certainly the pandemic, and coming out of it, our providers really need to come together and take care of themselves, take care of one another, and continue to take care of the residents of our county. But I do want to note that this county, while the focus in public health has been on the pandemic for the last couple of years, and it was largely on the opioid epidemic for the 2 or 3 years before that. And while the work was going on to address the pandemic and all of its impacts, the work on opioid and addiction continued, and actually we made great progress. We did have a bump 2019 to 2020 during the worst of the pandemic, both in fatalities and in overdoses. I think that happened everywhere, largely as a result of the inability of providers to provide services and folks being isolated. But in Anne Arundel County, between 20 and 21, we saw an extraordinary 17% decline in fatalities and a 21% decline in overdoses. And this year to date, it's significantly better than that. We have had, compared to last year at this time, 30% fewer fatalities and 23% fewer overdoses. So I want to congratulate and thank all of the providers out there, our Department of Health as well, for the work that they've been doing. Anne Arundel County is blessed to have more providers per capita than any other county, more beds per capita, and really the greatest crisis response team in the world, we are told. We've won that award with our providers working with our police departments in crises, and really being out there when people need them the most. And we've invested heavily in that work and will continue to do so. Anne Arundel County is the site of Crownsville Hospital Center, where some of the greatest mistakes and the most work has been done in terms of behavioral health and mental health in the country. And as we acquire that facility from the state, it's been abandoned for 14 years, but we have 4 providers operating on that site now. We're starting a nonprofit health and wellness incubator there as well. And we're going to be creating the Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park, but it's going to be a center for healing. And those services that are there will continue and possibly expand. And I couldn't be more proud of the work that is being done in our county on that. But I do want to turn it over to Dr. Kalyana to talk about not only the work that we've done on recovery in the county, but to remind us that it is fall, and that is when cases increase, both with the flu and of course with COVID-19. And we have, it's time for boosters. We have the new vaccination that has been updated for the most recent variants, and it's time to go out there and get your boosters, and it's time to go out there and get your flu shots. And I want to turn it over quickly to Dr. Kalyana to tell us more about that.
Thank you, County Executive. Yes, this is National Recovery Month, and it's important to know what it is that's happening with opioids. As County Executive mentioned, we have paid a lot of attention to that, and that was kind of the top of the mind before COVID. But it doesn't mean that we stopped thinking or working on that. We have seen decreases this year compared to last year in total opioid overdoses by about 21% and by about 29% for fatal overdoses. And it's for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes I get asked, what's the reason? There isn't one. It's the range of things that's being implemented. So increased naloxone availability is really important. Safe stations have always been an important part of this. The walk-in center in Gaudenzia, which is in the Crownsville Hospital, the land there. Increasing access to buprenorphine through primary care doctors has been a core push from us, because we know that people want to get treated with their doctors where it's safe, where they know them. Making buprenorphine more easily available through our Wellmobile in Glen Burnie, in South County, and in Annapolis twice a week. These and a range of other activities are really important. Our prevention coalitions around the county are really a critical part of our community in engaging people who are both looking to prevention and also to recovery, so that they can actually be there for supports to people in the community. And we're going to continue to push on all of those, right? To invest in them, because fundamentally, while we're doing better than last year, there's still a lot of people who are overdosing. There's still a lot of people who are being affected by substance use disorder. And the important thing to know is that the majority of people who do seek treatment get better. There is hope in getting treated. And so the more people we can get treated, the more lives we can save and improve.
Thanks,
Switching-
Secretary. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to switch over to COVID.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, switching over to COVID. There's been a lot of buzz about the new bivalent vaccines. That's different than the original vaccines in that they're updated for the Omicron strains. So this is what happens with the flu shots, actually. The reason we get one each year is because they're updated for the new flu variants that are circulating. And now that's happening with the COVID vaccine as well. So it's really important for everybody to realize that if you've gotten vaccinated, you should still get this bivalent booster as soon as 2 months after your previous shot. And the reason for that is it provides that expanded protection against Omicron. And you can think of it as, hey, the COVID vaccines are kind of like the flu vaccines. We're going to do them this fall. Everybody's going to get up to date and get the most up-to-date version of that. And along that lines, it's time to get your flu shot as well. So we're really encouraging everybody to get that bivalent, which is updated, that updated COVID booster, along with their flu shot as well.
All right. And I just want to, before we open it up, plug one event that is coming up that is going to be pretty special. I'm looking out my window on the 4th floor of the Arundel Center, and I see the sprucing up of People's Park right across the road. And the reason for that is that on Thursday, the great mural will be unveiled, the largest mural in our county by far, the side of this building. It's called The Best Place for All mural, and it's been recently completed by two extraordinary artists, Comcell Brown and Cindy Fletcher Holden. And they were up there in a basket at the end of a crane for over a month, 10 hours a day, painting. And it's to me, and I think to almost anybody who sees it, it's a true celebration of what this county is. And if we had to rename it, which we won't, it's the Best Place for All mural. I would say it should be the Gratitude mural. You cannot look at this without feeling some sense of gratitude for the people, the nature, the natural resources, the industries, the land of our county, and it will make you smile. So please join us. There will be an amazing time-lapse video available that we'll put up on that day as well of the process of painting it. There's a virtual reality component of that as well that I won't tell you too much about until you try it. But please join us this Thursday, 4 o'clock, down here on Calvert Street, 45 Calvert Street at the Arundel Center. Back to you, Jeff.
All right, with that, we'll take a few questions. Again, put your name and media affiliation in the chat if you've got a question today. John Fernay, Annapolis.
I guess this is for Dr. Kelly Narman. Just, do you have any thoughts on President Biden's proclamation that the pandemic is over the other day on 60 Minutes?
Yeah, so I'd heard that the pandemic, the pandemic is over, is what the president said. COVID is still affecting people's lives. We still see that there have been to date over 330 deaths from COVID in our county alone, which still makes it either the third or fourth leading cause of death. So COVID is still here with us, and we still need to take our precautions, and that's why we continue to push vaccines, because this is truly a vaccine preventable illness and death. The vast majority of people who get vaccinated are unlikely to face the severe consequences. So really want to encourage people that it's while the pandemic, the worst part may be over, COVID's not gone. It's still here with us, and we still need to take our preventive actions to protect ourselves.
Thank you.
All right, Rachel Pasella, the Capitol.
Hi, yeah, thanks very much. I just wanted to quickly ask a little bit about bus transportation. It looks like today there are 82 buses that are out of service. I know this is an issue that you were following last year. Are you doing anything actively right now to try to address this that you can tell us about? And I guess, do you have anything new or additional planned in light of the elevated number of outages we are seeing?
I can tell you how frustrating it is for all of us. This whole community is well aware of it. There has been much more transparency about this crisis than there was a year ago. And there has been a call since the summer by both county government and the school board and our workforce development people to hire bus drivers, as well as childcare workers, where we've had some success, and crossing guards, where we're having to pay police officers right now to fill in for crossing guards. I was pleased that we were the first county last year to do the hiring and retention bonuses. It's exactly what the company owners said that they needed to be able to compete in this marketplace where wages are going up and where government is always slower to catch up with the wages. And they tell me that it did boost hiring and that we would be in a much worse position had we not done it. I talked to a bus driver over the weekend who told me that she did get that $5 an hour increase, and it actually kept her on the job in Anne Arundel County, but that this year her hours have been reduced from close to 40 to close to 30 hours as a result of the change in the start time. So she's now thinking about whether or not she can continue in this job with only 30 hours. And so my question to the school board and the superintendent is always, what are we doing in the short term and the long term? I have to start thinking about next year's budget. And we put in some of our federal money to supplement what the school board asked for in the last budget. We gave them everything they asked for. I will be talking to Dr. Bedell about next year's budget request. We need for these bus drivers to know that there will be more compensation, there will be better working conditions. The only way that we can solve this problem, because it's a market problem, is by making these jobs attractive for people to do. And they have to know that it's going to get better, and that's going to be in our budget. We will deliver what the school board asked for, and we will be talking to the school board about that. They have purchased some of these smaller vans that you don't need CDL license for, but that's a very small part of this. Doing things like a rolling, so I think somebody suggested a rolling process throughout the county where you know in advance that you won't have a bus for your child. It just doesn't work. If you ask any bus driver or any bus driving company, you can't tell them that their route is going to change willy-nilly from week to week. These drivers, they work their routes, they get to know the kids, they get to know their routes, and And if you tell them that you're going to pull them off a route and go to another one against their will, then you risk losing them as well. So we have to remember that these are private companies and these are employees that are free to leave. And so we are tactfully working with our school board, our superintendent, and directly in some cases with these bus driving companies through workforce development to recruit and to retain and to provide the incentives that they need to be able to attract workers.
Thank you.
Next up, Dana Monroe, the Capitol.
Hi, we saw Jansen Evelyn get approved last night for the Police Accountability Board, and now that it's a couple months in, I wondered how you're feeling about the board as it stands and their work so far, and if it's living up to your expectations, County Executive.
You know, we had a staff meeting yesterday with Jansen in it, and we were talking about some of the kudos that he and we have been getting. Word got out, I think, through Maryland Matters that Anne Arundel County was ahead of almost every county in the state. So he's now spending a lot of time taking calls from other counties, asking how to do this, how we've done this. And, this was something that was when we opened up the process to talk about what our board would look like and made it a very public process through our county council. It did open up some wounds and it did create some very difficult conversations. I think it was worth doing. I think that most people are feeling good about our board who's been selected to be on our board. Our administrative charging committee comes next. That's starting to get complex about how all of that works, but we have a lot of applicants for that, a lot of interest. But Jansen Evelyn is somebody who has the right background, understands government, understands law enforcement, understands these issues, and we think he's the right leader. And so I have high expectations that this Police Accountability Board is going to improve trust and engagement and transparency, just the way we want to do in every department of government. So I feel good about it.
Can I ask a follow-up? Can you elaborate a little more when you say that Anne Arundel's ahead, like since the deadline was for everyone was the same, how are we ahead?
A lot of counties didn't meet the deadline to have their board appointed and seated, and we did. I think there may be only one county that's actually hired staff to run this. And so they're all scrambling, they're all feeling like they're behind in terms of creating the process so that when a complaint does come from the public and it goes to the Police Accountability Board and the investigation is done over at the police department, how do the two communicate with one another? What information does the public get? What information does the Police Accountability Board get? All of these are processes that have to be created. So the fact that we have a director means that we are actually figuring these things out, and that's where he's being very helpful to others and ahead of the curve.
Thank you.
All right, we'll do one last call for questions. If you have a question, name and media affiliation in the chat. All right, we'll wrap there. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.